Hello, everyone.
I have no hair, so I don't have that problem.
Yeah, no, my hair looks horrendous. Plus, I look like I'm in a red room right now. I got to figure that out too. Oh, hi, everyone. We're live. Not a Russ with something to say.
So, watched a documentary the other day on MLB Network, and it actually was a documentary. It actually was on Ken Griffey Jr. It pointed out the good things. He really didn't have too many bad things, but it did point out, and he talked about why he asked to leave Seattle, why he eventually asked to leave Cincinnati and come back. They pointed out all his injuries. They pointed out, articles that were being done in Cincy after his great 40-homer season that, hey, he can't stay on the field and stay healthy. They also had people like LeBron James on and Harold Reynolds, teammates and otherwise. And what you took out of it was exactly what I took out of it, because I got to cover him for one game in Philly, and I could see already at that point he was definitely not a steroid guy because his body was aging naturally. He was heavy, and he had been through a lot of injuries. He probably had 4 or 5 major injuries from the point where he joined Cincinnati because, again, he played, all out all the time. End of the day, this was how you do a documentary on a player who definitely is looked at in the steroid era as one of the beacons of being like a real athlete and just playing baseball the way it should be and having fun playing it, like actually enjoying it, smiling. And so it was great to watch. I suggest everybody watch it.
So in honor of Griffey?
There you go.
Yeah. Buck Showalter may yell at me, so I probably should turn it back.
He would.
Yeah, right.
I
remember.
That's the thing. It's I loved Griffey as a player. I mean, obviously, I wanted him on the Yankees, and then we found out from this from the documentary that there were valid reasons why he never would play for the Yankees. And the thing is, and we were talking before the show.
Well, you could say the reason, Mike.
Yeah, no. I mean, his father was treated terribly by the Yankees. He was brought in as a free agent, and he really didn't live up to expectations. And he was a good player for Cincinnati back in the day, and the Yankees signed him in I think it was the early 80s. I think it was like 82 or 83, something like that, along with a bunch of other questionable free agent signings like Steve Kemp. And they didn't work out. And at that point, Steinbrenner, after those World Series years with Reggie, he got a little spiteful in terms of these guys who, we know the stuff with Dave Winfield and how that almost led to him being, unseated as the owner of the team for the rest of his life. And then he was able to
reinstate them.
They reinstated him, but he took that to great lengths, and because Griffey didn't live up to expectations, they took it out on him, and that's that treatment is the reason why Ken Griffey Jr. basically said to fans, "I will never play for the Yankees ever, ever, ever," and he meant it, and I don't blame him.
He probably hit 400 agaed them.
Oh, he had 5 homers, I think, and 7 ribbies in that 5-game series in 1995.
Yeah,
he carried that offense. He killed them. I mean, look. I was a huge Griffey. I mean, first of all, you guys know I do fantasy baseball, so Griffey was obviously a high pick, and I was also like Russ, a card collector. So the '89 Upper Deck was kind of like the gold standard at the time. I mean, in terms of the card and the changeover from Topps and Fleer and Donruss to Upper Deck, and he's the one who ushered in really the new era of card collecting based upon people really going crazy for rookie, above and beyond where it was for even prior years. But even beyond that, look, I mean, the swing, the outfield, the smile. I mean, Russ talked about his injuries, and granted, I think the documentary did a good job of listing and showing each one of them. Going back to Seattle when he made the catch against the wall and broke his wrist, crashing in to the wall. But I mean, you just look at the swing, the way he comported himself on the field.
That could be one of the Steinbrenners on the phone now. Sorry,
could be. Well, again. I mean, Mike doesn't remember. Steinbrenner getting suspended was probably the best thing that happened to them because he built the entire farm system. We won't bring up the name Howard Spira, but we all know who that was. But Griffey was just a phenomenal player. I mean, and it's interesting. I know it's funny. Somebody was tweeting, "Why did they have McLemore on?" Because I'm like, well, McLemore, what is Seattle now? I mean,
he's a fan.
He was represented. Same like that. Nick Lachey from Cincinnati. He's very recognizable and linked to the town in terms of when he came on board. But I thought the comment by LeBron about being a phenom and then playing in your own hometown was really well done.
It was well done.
It was an interesting dichotomy between the two athletes and what each of them had to deal with in terms of their own hometowns.
We lost him. The only thing I wanted to mention about the reason why I don't think Griffey Sr. worked out is because he was a fastball hitter. And at that time, the American League and National League were completely different. And I just think he just never got used to American League life. Now, when he played with his son, that's a whole different thing because he was just a pinch hitter and occasional outfielder.
Just quickly, Jan, because I don't have the card, obviously, but when I did collect, one of Griffey's rookies, I mean, I think it was the Fleer rookie is the one that everybody looks at as the established, because it was
No, the upper deck's the established.
Upper deck is the established because it came in packs. They all did.
Okay, well, no,
Donruss did also.
Okay,
right.
But there was one that wasn't printed as much, and that's the one that's worth tons more than the others.
Oh, there is a Fleer update, I think, but still everybody looks at the 89 upper deck.
It's still the one that's got probably the best value out of all of them. Yeah. I mean, again, just the look of him on the card is, when you look at it, that's Griffey, right? The smile, the whole 9 yards. I mean, the fun part I thought also was them talking about the cleats, right? How he was the first one to have a cleat named after him, and the impact it had on it. Everybody wanted to have the Griffey cleats back then.
The one last thing I'll say, and even Eck will be able to appreciate this for card collecting nerds, you don't always get a perfect 89 upper deck Griffey because it was card number 1, and card number 1 in box sets sometimes gets destroyed. I've got one that's got a little bit of center damage, just pushed in a little. So of course I got a bit of a deal on it, but that's what happens.
Yeah.
So the other piece of news I want to give, I thought in a very wicked sense of irony for those of us who do still follow tennis a little bit and obviously, watch the Big Four and the U.S. Open. There's been a lot of talk about Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal and others not wanting to come to New York because they cannot have their entire entourage. Well, you know what? Don't mess with Mother Nature and don't mess with the health system, because Novak Djokovic just came down with COVID. So I don't know if he's going to be traveling anywhere right away, but I just found that as a very wicked sense of irony, given everything that has been discussed. And now the fact that he came down with it, I want to see what his follow-up comments are going to be. Yeah,
and just a nod to Richard Petrosky in the chat. He recognized my ringtone was the Apocalypse in 9/8, featuring the delicious talents of Gable Ratchet from Supper's Ready from Genesis. So there you go.
It makes me want to do a long keyboard solo in 11/7. Yeah. That's all I can think when I hear that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Russ's ringtone is the Rick Wakeman solo from Close to the Edge.
No, it's not. It wasn't one time. It's Urgent from Far.
No. I mean, my ringtone for my phone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
off of Foreigner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When hockey people call me, it's the Pac-Man opening theme. You guys have heard it a couple times.
Yeah, we've heard that.
I finally got a ticker for the show. I've been waiting to get a ticker for a show, so this is the ticker today. We're gonna. It's just gonna. I've been looking into ways of doing it. It seems to be the best way to do it. So I'm just gonna have the show ticker that's gonna have what we're gonna talk about.
That's not gonna be annoying.
No, it's just telling people what we're gonna talk about today. It's all.
Thank God, it hopefully doesn't drive with that thing on.
As long as it doesn't reveal what's in your head, Eck, we're fine.
It actually does. It actually exactly how it works. That's how you think you get it on there.
You should put the date there. That would help you.
It is on there.
It is on there.
Oh, it is. Okay.
The problem is it's up here and not for him to look at his wrist.
Right.
It won't help him.
Right. So the thing about this hat is I was waiting for the right perfect time to use it. Someone had sent it to me as a gag gift a while back, and I was looking for the perfect time to use it. Well, my wife and I have been doing this thing since the virus started. We built a pickleball court on our driveway, and we're both highly competitive and both athletes, and so we play pickleball every day, regardless of weather. Every day we're home, and the only times we haven't played it, and a couple times we've been at the shore. So we played it, I don't know, 100 times now or whatever. How long it ever has been since it started. We play every day at some point, even if it's like 10:30 at night. We'll get it in. We'll do it. And I got the hat thing, so I thought so I wrote on the hat. I just wrote a whole bunch of insults towards her, like you can't beat me, and bring it in, and don't come to the net and stuff like that. And I played against her. Nice. In the dark. It's a lot of fun. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'll just wear it for a little while because I know it will get annoying, but there you have it.
Will?
Yeah, it will. It will get annoying if it hasn't already.
Yes.
All right, remember, what's the date today?
Look at the hat.
Look at the hat. Wait for it. Okay. There you go. Let's start on time. Hey, hello, Meckland. It's Monday.
What the hell?
I think we're gonna rotate who announces the date from now on. Just
no, it's part of the charm of the show.
Charm?
Part of what makes me, Jan.
It's like a Tulsa, Oklahoma charm.
Yeah.
With 6,200 people in the audience?
Yeah, I know. Nope. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is one Monday, June 22nd, 2020. I had a really lazy weekend. I'm sorry. Let me just.
I'm Michael
One
Lagello.
more time, Mike. I'm sorry. I had a really lazy weekend. We've been nothing but what we binge
Take
watched
three.
a show called X. If you guys had a chance to watch a show called Expedition Unknown, it's on the Travel Channel. I've never ever seen it, but it's
I've seen it, but I haven't watched it in a long time.
Oh, it's great. It's so great. It's so much fun. It's all this like it's like Exhibition Unknown. It's like treasure. They look for treasures. They search this guy who goes all over the world. It's fantastic. We binge watched it like all weekend. So I've been such a like crazy lazy weekend.
Right.
All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, June 22nd, 2020.
I'm Michael Lagello, and 1 year ago today, we were in Vancouver at the NHL draft.
There you go.
I'm Jan Levine.
I'm Anthony Mingioni, and I'm really kind of sad about the fact we're not going to be in Montreal this year.
Oh, best place ever.
Let's
And
come from Sportsology. Way to bring it down.
sorry, Russ. I jumped on Russ. I'm sorry, Russ. And that's Russ. And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. And who needs a draft when you've got us? We're the Buzz podcast that comes
Wow.
through. I just feel like going.
Here, let me
English is not your first,
You need to
second, or
take
third
that
language
out,
today.
Yeah, the hat is confusing.
The hat's confusing. All right, I'll wear it like this, okay? Now only people behind me can find out what's going on in the show. All right, here we go.
I think the hat has CBD or something. But anyway,
Nice.
okay,
Let's get into it. We have lots of things to talk about today. I'm really excited. You know, we're like 2 weeks away now from the start of opening of camps, which none of us will be able to cover. But besides that, things are looking up and exciting, and we are really close. Like soon, when you think about it, we're gonna have. And I wrote today, we're gonna have like 22 months of uninterrupted hockey essentially coming up. Like if you think about how this plays out,
If
like,
it all works out, yeah.
you know, we're gonna go into this. This season will go. This season starts in August, like they expect. So August, that's going to run through. You know, say November. The next season starts in December. That's going to run through, say, July, or because it'll run through the end of July probably, because that'll start late, and then we'll start again in October. So it's like we're not going to have many off seasons to worry about for a while.
yeah, that gap in between the end of this year and then the draft and then free agency and then it'll lead right up into the season. There's not going to be any shortage of news. But let's start with this because you just mentioned.
Go ahead.
The NHL came out after the announcement, and we'll talk about this, after the announcement that 11 players tested positive for COVID on
Right.
Friday.
Right.
One of them mentioned by Steve Simmons as Austin Matthews, but the
Right.
league or the team did not confirm that because they can't. The NHL essentially said everything is online. We're not changing. It's still July 10th for the opening of training camp. Nothing. That is those positives are not going to dissuade them from opening. If it blows up, obviously they're going to have to either push things back or we're done. But that's why they're testing. It was over 200 people that they tested, and it was 11 positives, which is 5%. Which and start with you, Russ. 3 weeks to training camp. Most or all of those players, knock on wood, are going to be fully capable of performing at the start training camp by those 3 weeks. So that's the reason why I think the date hasn't been moved.
No question. I'm not shocked with Matthews because of where he was. I brought up 3 times on the show before the results that the Leafs or Matthews himself should have gotten himself out of Arizona, seeing how things were. But it just, for whatever reason, players don't seem to have the same issues that we regular folk do as far as worrying about this stuff. I think they just figure if they get it, they'll get over it, and that's it. I'm not so, I'm older, so I worry about it a little more. Either way, they tested over 200 guys, and they did some multiple times. They did a great job as compared to Major League Baseball, who we just found out wasn't testing anybody walking in and out of their places in Florida, and that's why the numbers were so high. Like, to me, that was like, if the NHL had not had this in place and they had been Major League Baseball, everybody would be killing hockey today. But they're not. And they're actually saying, hey, good job, because at least they're staying within guidelines of what they sort of were expecting.
Jan, in the chat, Funky Cold Zadina is saying, I'm wondering about the Leafs-Matthews relationship and why they wouldn't confirm it. They could not confirm it because, and TSN had Steve Simmons on the air, and pulled down the audio because TSN through Bell Media is half owner of the Leafs. Same with Sportsnet. And the NHL, their reporters, because there's NHL protocol, they couldn't report on it. But Steve Simmons, working for Post Media, he confirmed it. He checked with their legal representatives. They reported it. It's a valid story.
Which means Matthews told him. That's
well, I don't know if
that's the only way you could. That's the only way that he could legally do it. Like, there's no way with all the HIPAA things. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, that's like his goes to his lawyers and says, "Can I report this?" Did Matthews tell you? Yeah, Matthews told me. If Matthews told you, then you can do it. Otherwise, I don't see any way you could be reporting it. I think that's
and there was some speculation before, but what Russ said, I don't want Jan and Anthony to get on this. What the problem?
I'll leave. Fine, go ahead. Just have Russ Anthony.
It's your show, so of course.
Kidding. You just said you want Russ Anthony.
No, but the thing is that, the criticism of Matthews not leaving Arizona, the 14-day quarantine was the thing. And of course, that dropped off a couple days ago. He stayed in Arizona because he could practice at the Arizona Coyotes practice facility, and he wouldn't have to shut down for 14 days. That's why he stayed there. Only in the last couple days before he was diagnosed as being positive could he have gone to Toronto. And by that time, it was probably too late. But Jan, what do you think of where the NHL is going with this right now?
Well, in terms of which part of where they're going with.
Well, staying on course with July 10th and the positive.
I mean, as Russ said, so you had 11 positive tests out of the 200, right? We don't know how symptomatic anybody is also in terms of whether or not they're asymptomatic or not. And irrespective of that, we all know that just because you're asymptomatic doesn't necessarily mean you're not a carrier and you can get others sick. But, the key was, as Russ said, and this is the thing that came out about Major League Baseball, they temperature checked people but didn't do anything else associated with testing them in order to make sure you quarantine them immediately. In this case, it sounds as if the NHL is taking all the right protocols based upon what they established as part of the Phase 2 protocol to build into Phase 3 and 4. The other downside piece is that, look, athletes in general, everybody in general, are going to get nervous and scared based upon the information that comes out because of the contagion potentially spreading to others. So if there are players that want to opt out, that this is going to probably give them a better opportunity of opting out because of the fact that you've now had players test positive even before you've gotten to reopen training camp. So I think the NHL is handling it correctly, right? You don't want to, you're not going to go into a full-blown panic yet because you've probably sequestered these people hopefully appropriately and you're doing the contact tracing and making sure that it hasn't spread to anybody else, but that doesn't minimize the potential impact of this spreading and going out to others in terms, I wouldn't say by wildfire, but in terms of impacting others that are either inside or outside the camp.
And Anthony, Pierre LeBrun reported about an hour ago, based on, referring to what Jan was talking about, that part of the negotiations between the PA and the teams will be the opt-out for players. And I'm saying, like, guys like Max Domi or guys like Brian Boyle, who is recovering from leukemia, Domi had type 1 diabetes, that they would be able to, they would get a waiver, they would get paid. And they not for have, if they have a pre-existing condition, they will not get penalized or punished. And I don't think the NHL is going to have a problem with that.
No, I don't think so. That was actually my next point that I was going to piggyback off of Jan's point, was the fact that, LeBrun's report stated again that this was something that will be discussed between the PA and the league itself, which again is the right tack. You put the onus on the player in this case on how comfortable that they are with doing this. Exactly. As I mentioned to you guys, I had to do for my own job. I had to do a survey that asked when we get to September, August, whether it's around the same time that the league will be coming back, how comfortable you would be with coming back into these circumstances. So these are things they have to cover, and these are the bases they have to cover, and it's got to be willingness on both, certainly from the player perspective, depending on their situation, like a Domi in this circumstance.
I just have to say this in terms of like all the regulations and things that are going on in each particular state, and I know things are different in Pennsylvania than they are in New York, but in one of the first weekends that I could go out and do something like going to a restaurant in New York, you have to walk into the restaurant wearing a mask, but then you can take the mask off when you sit down. Yeah. What sense does that make? You're gonna get it more when you're walking around, but you're not gonna get it as much when you're sitting down. I mean,
the idea is, I think that it does make sense. I mean, there's no reason not to be careful. I mean, there's no reason not to wear a mask. I mean, you could sit there. You're right. I mean, the chances are. I mean, the idea is you're passing by a lot of people as you walk in. That's my opinion, at least. I don't have an issue. I mean, I know that things things are crazy. But
I think it's inside any establishment. You necessarily kind of have to wear a mask because you're inside the establishment as opposed to outside, right?
Outside here now in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, you're allowed to eat outside, right? There's restaurants that if they eat out, place you're allowed to eat outside. And a couple of places we're getting tons of advertisements in our mailbox about like, oh, we just opened a deck or whatever, and come eat on our deck and stuff like that.
Right.
It's great,
There's a huge diner by us, like about 10, 15 minutes from the house, where they created this massive tent outside in kind of what used to be the parking area. Yeah. And they created all their tables out there. This thing is huge. The tent business is probably doing a wonderful business right now.
Doing a good job right now.
You know about it, right? And you get fans and everything else. So especially for the summer, that's the perfect time for people, for them to take advantage of the good weather.
Well, so a restaurant that I frequently go to, they were allowing people, they had the door open, they were allowing people to eat inside at the bar, and they had a 6-foot piece of wood separating, like showing that you're social distancing in between like my seat and the next people over. So they had actually something that was a actual physical barrier that kept people 6 feet apart, which is bizarre. Okay, so here's the update that we've heard over the weekend. The league is not pushing back the starting date of training camp to July 10th. It's right now. It's going to stay July 10th. Yep. They're going to continue to monitor. They're going to continue to test as they have been. Renaud Lavoie reported on the weekend that training camp will be 2 weeks, which we've been saying, all of us have been saying for a while, and that the tentative date of the beginning of the play-in round would be July 30th. After one exhibition game, they would play. They would start on July 30th, and I think it was L.A. Friedman that reported that Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, barring any delays, would be October 5th. So there's your window right now. Is
July games for a period of time.
That is a very fast turnaround.
You're talking about really 2 months, because you're talking at the end of July, the beginning of October. So you're really talking about August and September, 2 months to play a play-in round and a regular playoffs.
And right in that slot, like we've been saying for a while, right in that Olympic TV slot that we knew NBC wanted to fill. So they're going to get exhibition games and the start of the play-in round right smack dab in those 2 weeks that they would have been broadcasting.
And again, you can pull again with it being in hubs. You can do this.
You can do it,
because of that. But there is again, and we get into the playoffs and we've had back-to-back games. On back-to-back nights, and then obviously you have the travel of a day or two. In this case, you don't have that, so it's doable. It's just it still is a concern where you're going from what it feels like from 0 to 90. Real fast.
I talked to one guy.
If you have 12, go ahead.
I talked to one of the Flyers about this, and it was really funny because he said, "Yeah, I'm really looking forward. I'm really psyched about it. He's I'm really looking forward to it because it just, to me, he's like, there's a couple things about. Obviously, the playoffs are just so much fun. I'm definitely ready to get out of the house and hang out with my buddies. I really want to get back in with the guys in a big way. And also, I love if they're hearing that it's going to be not back-to-back games. They're hearing that it'll be every other day.
Right.
And he says every other day is like a fantastic thing for hockey players. Like we hate when there's that extra day off for the television or whatever. They get into a nice habit. You play hard. You have the next morning to recover, and that day to work on some things in practice. Next day game. That's what they want.
Momentum can play a role here too, potentially. If you get on a roll after one game, momentum becomes a bit more of a factor when things are close.
Two games per hub per day. That's what. Probably 4.5 hours in between the two games. So in case there's overtime, they don't have to worry about things running over. But now, the reports are, and of course they didn't specify what. But the report was that the list of teams or the list of cities has been weaned down from 10 to 6. Yeah. And Brian Hedger, who's a reporter in Columbus, said that that Columbus is not going to be one of the 10 cities. So
yeah, I've heard that too.
So I
think that's because their practice facility is far away. I've seen it on the highway. It's not exactly close, and I think that's probably the reason.
Yeah, they have a really nice hotel situation there, and
they do.
They have a nice restaurant situation there. They have restaurants right within that. There's kind of like in a little mini area, the Columbus thing. So kind of got its own little
good downtown area.
Yeah, like a fake town type thing.
But not the practice area. That's the problem.
Yeah. So which Arizona has the same kind of thing.
But they're out.
But Arizona wasn't even in the 10. They
The
weren't.
interesting thing is the momentum that Vancouver's picked up, and I mentioned this a long time ago that because I talked to the NHL and I wrote an article a long time ago to look for Vancouver to be one of the favorites here in this thing, and I really still believe that, and for many reasons, like we've said, but I don't know if we'd have Vancouver and Vegas. Like I think that's what's interesting. I think it's one or the other.
What would be the difference? Why would you say no to that?
The impression I've gotten is that they really want to do a team in a city in the East and a city in the West. And
yeah, but I don't think it has to be an exact science like that. Like I think Pittsburgh could be a backup. I mean, they don't have to be in it.
I also think that they are starting to get some concerns about Vegas. I really do. Like they're and that's why I say like
that makes sense if you're going to then make Vancouver the Western
right.
Well, I know that when the announcement came out about the 11 positives, and obviously we were all following the fact that the rates are spiking in Florida and in Texas and Arizona, that I know that Chris Johnston and Elliot Friedman said the speculation around the league is that the chances of 2 Canadian cities being the 2 hubs would, because the rates are significantly down in Edmonton, Vancouver, and Toronto, that there, it was a no way that was going to be 2, and now it's a distinct possibility.
See, I disagree with that. I don't think you should have 2 in any particular area just in case there's a problem. Like if all of a sudden Canada has a problem, you have 2 there, you're pretty much sunk.
Right.
I think if Vegas is out, I would go to Pittsburgh. They have pretty low levels. I know Vegas just opened, so their numbers are definitely going to be high. There's no question about it. And we'll have to see if they don't level off. But again, I don't care if there's 2 in the West if they're safe. Like to me,
I don't care either. I mean, I don't care, but I've just heard that they really are.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I think it is.
The main reason for television like itself, and the way they don't want players in the West having they want to start some games as early as like 11 a.m. East Coast time. So the idea of that would be if
8
they do
o'clock,
8 a.m.
Yeah,
8 a.m. in the morning out there, that's rough, right? So
when Florida and the Islanders or Minnesota, Vancouver will be playing. It'll be those games.
Right. So that's what you're going to see, and I mean, but Vancouver makes so much sense just for so many reasons, and obviously because they did an Olympic Village before, and I heard that kept being mentioned. Like
but those Olympic villages have been turned into condos. They're not.
That was only part of the Olympic Village. When I was in Vancouver, there was a condo section to that, and there was also a section where that they had just hotels that were kind of ramped off too.
Although my negative for Vancouver is lack of transportation and also bad traffic. Like those are 2 things they're going to have to battle if they go to Vancouver.
Yeah, they're not going to allow public transportation.
No. But even if you wanted to, there's no Uber, there's no place. Even if a player wants to go from A to Z, they're not going to be able to.
Well, I think there'll be buses. I mean, they'll bus the players around. They'll bus all the players from place to place, and they'll have
No, but I mean on the off time, because if we think they're going to be sequestered the whole time and in the bubble 100% of the time, it's not going to happen.
But I do think
I think they will be.
They are.
I do think that in spite of the recent wave that Vancouver is gaining credibility, I still think that Toronto is if you're talking about one Canadian city, I think it would be Toronto, or at least they're leading coming around the final turn. Because
I would think so too.
Because
it depends on Vegas, right? Like it depends on Vegas. Like if Vegas becomes a terrible situation, then Vancouver becomes. I mean, I don't think there's any reason that it couldn't be Vancouver and Toronto. Honestly, just like you said, it couldn't be any 2 West Coast teams. I don't think there's any reason they couldn't be. The NHL might just find it easier to deal with Canada in this situation. They might just be like, okay, this is what we're going to do with it. These are 2 cities that have been very careful. The quarantine thing, they've been super extra careful about it all, and to use that to their advantage. I don't see why they wouldn't do that.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a disadvantage, and that is, let's say the player has to go and he has to go meet his team in a week. So the player goes, I'm going now, and then the family goes, well, we're allowed to go. We're going to go right after you, and maybe they're going to drive. They may not get across the border because they're a family. You know what I mean? Those kinds of problems could arise.
I think the bigger problem would be like we talked about before, the doctor situation, the doctor issues, like stuff like that with Canada.
There's that too, yeah.
I think that there are great hospitals in Canada too, but we talked about all the teams want their own team doctors, stuff like that, and they like their own places to go to get evaluated. and how does our insurance work in Canada in different situations? How does all their, I don't know quite how that works.
There's probably no perfect answer. Let's be honest.
There isn't, but at the end
Going
of
to a
the day,
place that has minimal cases is probably paramount, right? I mean, you look at why the NBA may be reconsidering Orlando because they've averaged over 4,000 cases a day, spiking at about 4,700 yesterday, and the numbers keep rising. That, to me, that would be a reason, even with the bubble, to be very concerned because the interaction they're going to have with others there.
Yeah, and Florida is an interesting. My in-laws live in Florida, and it's interesting talking to them about the situation there because you have we have a lot of my in-laws live in Longboat Key, which is like an island, like many of the keys off the coast of Florida, in which are filled with old people. And they're filled with old people who are who are retired, and those places have like 0 cases because those people are so careful. But you get into like Sarasota or a town like right off those, and they're blowing up like crazy.
Yep.
So,
before we talk about the Selke, and we're going to preview the Bruins today.
I have a rumor today first.
Okay, and I saw I would definitely want to talk about that too. It was John Shannon reported, and this is something that Anthony and Ack and
I remember that guy.
Yeah. Carter Hart has changed agents.
Yeah.
From Elaine Roy to the Orr Wasserman group, which, by the way, folks, is the group. Judd Moldaver is part of that group who got Austin Matthews his big contract.
Yeah.
Carter Hart has got a year. He's in the second year of his 3-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
So he can sign an extension. And based on the way he's played in his second year, I think he's going to be asking for Vasilevsky money.
It's going to be high. I don't know if it'll be Vasilevsky money.
I don't know if we're going to go Vaz yet, but he's going to get a nice chunk of change. It's going to be real interesting.
The question is he go the Flyers go higher with him short term? That's the big question. I wonder. That's been the Flyers' history has been to not go like with an 8-year contract on a goalie.
Yeah, but you know what? At this point, when you believe you found that goalie, you have to go long term. If you go short term, you are going to get burned on a goalie. You have to take the risk.
No, he's not. He's not going to get Carey Price money. He's not going to get Bobrovsky money because Bobrovsky was a UFA.
There's not enough. There's not enough time in it. So
he hasn't had enough yet.
Massive projection.
He's not an unrestricted free agent.
I think Hart probably will know that as well.
Yeah.
He knows that's not necessarily something that's not money he's going to get, but he's going to get a good size contract. The question is going to be with the term and the dollar figure.
And the precedent, Jan, is for these goalies. Like Matt Murray took a bridge deal. Vasilevsky had a bridge deal before he got the long-term deal. The precedent is the bridge deal. But the Matthews, and I know we're talking centers and dominating number one centers instead of a number one goaltender, but that group does not have a history of saying we'll go for the bridge. They want the big money and they want it that now and then.
Well, you can understand both sides of the equation, right? If a team is not going to give him the multi-millions he wants, you take the bridge deal to sort of set yourself up for the bigger payday down the road as sort of a win-win for both sides of the equation. So Vasilevsky did, he said Murray did it. You look at what Carey Price got, and granted, Hart is nowhere near in that territory yet, but he wouldn't even remotely come close to the numbers that he's going to get. But the hope is he has 2-3 more good years in Philly, and Philly's been dying for a franchise goalie for a number of years, and he becomes that franchise goalie. All of a sudden, his bargaining power strengthens dramatically, and then he can strike for the huge payday down the road.
I'll tell you what I would do.
You go with that. If you're the Flyers, you take that chance because you're like you go and you say, okay.
You do. You've made a substantive investment in him with a second when you sunk a second round pick on him, which is high in this day and age. I think for goaltenders, first round we always talk about that first round picks. Yeah. Are what they are in terms of that virtually don't see it. And in the second round, and again, Philadelphia took him as a sandwich pick in the second round. They had 3 second-round picks that year and took him with the second one.
Yeah.
But still a substantial investment. That being said, Hart has pretty much, if you go with all the intangibles and you also go, with how he's sort of, his mental game and how he sort of handles things, in addition to his physical attributes and the fact that the main area of his game you look at that needs probably the most amount of work at this point is his ability to handle the puck. In terms of stick handling. And when you're getting into areas like that, pretty much, you start to be able to begin kind of projecting what you think you're going to get out of them. Now, at the same time, you got to balance it out with you're not, the days of having a goalie who's going to run 70 plus games is over with in the NHL for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's where the dollar investment is going to come in.
I'll tell you whose contract I'd match him up with. A couple years ago, Hellebuck got 6 years, 6.1. So maybe you give him 6 years, 6.5 because it's a couple years later.
Good. I would actually say
that's what I would offer.
An accurate number in that case. It satisfies the length of the deal. Yeah. He still has a chance for another major payday after that to make even more.
Right.
Did Hellebuck get that deal after he took the Winnipeg to the finals, or was that the year before he took
18-19 is when he signed it.
Yeah, so that's, I think, after.
Right after the
Stanley. He was coming off that big run, which basically probably spiked his price. Now, if Hart goes on a kind of a run now where he carries them deep, all of a sudden that dollar amount starts ticking up a little bit higher than may have been expected originally. And we also need to see what the cap's going to be, which right now is a big unknown.
It's a big factor.
Well, here's my thinking on this, though. I mean, and I think that, he's going to get a big contract at some point in his career, like a giant contract at some point in his career. He probably knows that, as long as he turns into the goalie that he's supposed to be, which is fine. Like, I think that, but we haven't seen a guy come out of his entry level. We've seen players like Matthews do it, but not goalies. We haven't seen a goalie.
Yeah, you're used to seeing with forward. Yeah,
there's reasons for that. There's good reasons for that, honestly.
But the reality here is that if they do get him on a bridge deal, it's not going to. Matt Murray took 3.75 for 2 years on a bridge deal.
Well, no, we're not looking at
more than likely any kind of 2-year bridge deal is kind of going to probably be around $5.5 million. It's going to be more than a team normally. They're going to have to pay him to take the short-term deal.
But they also had some leverage. When Matt Murray signed that bridge deal, they still had did they still have what's his name for Fleury?
He still had Fleury, yeah.
Yeah, that's a different spot. Like the leverage that Hart has over the Flyers is large because they haven't had a goalie forever. We're talking about they have that, but at the same time, the Flyers have no problem giving him $10 million a year if he wins them 2 Stanley Cups in the next 6 years. Like that's the issue.
He's not waiting for that though. That's the reality.
I'm saying if you're going to get like $6 million a year, like you're talking about, for like 4 years or something.
I think personally that'll end up being potentially the balance of it, where you can get both sides sort of satisfied, and that number, that 6.1 doesn't look so bad potentially a few years down the line, if and when the economy recovers and everything.
Yep. Yeah.
And again,
I also worry about putting that kind of money on a young goalie.
Yeah, he does have that advantage because again, the other goalies that are in system, Ustimenko isn't ready to play at the NHL. That certainly not Sandstrom. Yeah. So he does have some leverage here in terms of getting you saying, hey, who else is your option at this point?
Right.
And you've made this investment, you've sunk a lot of time and development into him, and he is rewarded the Flyers for the most part for what he has been able to do so far. Yeah. That's the other thing. You're talking about another factor in this is you're talking about a contract of the size for a player and a goaltender at such a young age.
He's great. Came in crazy young, remember, and to me, his issue is he does have issues handling the puck, which is to be expected for his age. But also the bigger thing to me is not that. The bigger thing to me is his issue of going down too soon when he gets in slumps. Like he gets in a slump, like players know to shoot high on him because he will go down a little bit. He will go down too soon, or he'll stay down when they wrap around the puck. He tends to stay down in that kind of on that crouched position on the post. People are taking advantage of that too. These are young things that he'll learn not to do as time goes on in the NHL. But for now, they're crutches that he's hanging on to from his previous game.
Now, Davey Jones in the chat has a question. We'll skip the Selke and go right to the Bruins because we want to devote enough time to the Bruins. How much will Jakob Markstrom get from Vancouver or from somebody else because he's a UFA? And if you look at it, he had his best save percentage for his entire career, .918 this year, and went 23, 16, and 4. He's 30 years old, so this is a situation where he's going to probably get paid more than he should because he's a UFA. I think he gets over $6 million a year.
I think he'll get 2 at 6 per. I don't think they'll give him more than 2 because of Demko, and I think that's what he's going to have to accept. I don't think they're going to give him a 4 or 5 year deal with Demko being a backup for that long. I don't think so.
Do you think another team would give him 3 or 4 years? Because I think they would.
I do. I think this is going to be similar to Leonard. I think this is like, how many years do you want to give me? And I think Vancouver is going to come short of giving him 3 or 4 because as great as Markstrom was this year, and he's definitely a good goalie, he's not been this his whole career.
Right.
And the question is, in the market, who would you rather have? We discussed this before, Leonard or Markstrom.
Yeah, right.
Or Holtby.
Right now, I probably would take Leonard over all of
them. I could see that.
Even Holtby, I don't think is the same.
To me, Markstrom and and Leonard's almost a toss.
It is. It's a toss-up.
I think I'd actually rather stay with Markstrom because he's going to be younger and he can.
Yeah, that would be and if it's a toss between the two of them, you invest in the younger. You're going to invest in you think you're going to have.
And also where the Canucks are, which is like they are just they're just becoming a playoff team. They're not a team. They're not a playoff team that's won 2 rounds and hasn't been able to get to the final. They're just becoming a playoff team, and they need to let Markstrom grow into that with them. To me, that's.
But Russ is right though in the sense that. If Vancouver re-signs him, they're going to want to limit the term because they do believe Demko is their future.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Yeah, but also, if you sign him for a couple of years, you give Demko a chance. You don't get people crying out for Demko to come and play all the time.
The problem is Markstrom hasn't played any playoffs since Utica in 2014-15. So again, you don't know. We got to see what he does here first. That's that'll really determine the salary too.
And the other thing is, Russ, that the only way Vancouver signs him to a deal longer than that is if they expose him in the expansion draft and lose him to Seattle, or think that they would lose him to Seattle. And if they do expose him, he'd probably be one of the goaltenders in Seattle picks because
up there because he's young and he's good. I want to talk about, before we get into Boston or anything else, I do want to talk about Mike Hoffman. So I was on this morning, I was writing my normal log for the day, and I got a text that, from a really trusted source of mine in Montreal, who is tied in very tightly with the Canadiens, and says that he talked to somebody late last night and said that the Canadiens are targeting Mike Hoffman as their number one UFA to grab this summer. And, and I think it makes some sense to me. It really, it's one of those guys that I see Hoffman as, he's a really good scorer. He kind of reminds me of like a John LeClaire type player in a lot of ways. He's around the net. He's not super fast, but he's crafty. He's a good skater, but not like a fast skater, but like solid. And great hands and bigger, and kind of player I think that the Canadian fans would eat up. So I think that
what my problem with Hoffman is in that market, he's never done anything in a big market because he's never played in a big market. Okay. I don't want to put a long-term deal on this guy.
He's been in a fishbowl in Ottawa, but again, it's not. I agree.
But for different reasons, not necessarily playing reasons.
And look how that
is part of one of the other considerations.
I wouldn't give him more than a 4-year deal. I just wouldn't, because I don't know if he's going to work out in Montreal. And there's a lot of pressure there still.
And I know that Montreal. They have a ton of draft picks, but that doesn't matter in this situation because he's a UFA.
Yeah.
And they have a ton of cap space, which does matter. But the problem is, and as we've quantified here a number of times, you can't get players to go to Montreal unless you overpay them. And I think that's a problem for the Canadiens. And also, he's the wrong type of player that they need. They need a scorer, but they need a center more than anything.
And somebody younger. He's 30, and like you guys even all admitted, he isn't the greatest skater. So if all of a sudden I give him a 4-year deal, he's basically in 2 years you want to trade him the same way the Kings wanted to trade Toffoli because he's not a great skater.
So I guess my question is I view him as he is a solid, in my opinion, second-line winger, borderline first-line winger, and is he really a guy who is going to be a leader on your team? Are you going to want him to bring him in to kind of be that guy who's going to carry that team or help lead that team as the veteran? And I view Hoffman as more of a behind-the-scenes kind of a guy, not a guy who's going to be in front to be a face of a kind of franchise, especially, as we talked about, given what happened in Ottawa and the reasons for him leaving. I'm not quite sure if you're going to want to put him in that position either.
Heck, you know what I categorize Hoffman as? I categorize Hoffman as like Phil Kessel going to Pittsburgh. The last piece that you need in terms of a scorer, a finisher. He would make sense for a team like the Islanders who need scoring desperately.
Yeah, but they already took Pajot and it's not working out. Right. They're not going to do Hoffman too.
Right, but
Pajot, we don't know if Pajot's going to work. It's a little early to say.
I'm just saying, so far it has not worked out. So far.
It was 9 games.
9 games.
Yeah,
that's all we got, guys.
Russell's spoken 9 games. That's enough.
That's all. I'm not saying it's enough.
I'm saying that is the Cohen sample.
No, I'm just saying that
the NHL, Russell's right. Like the NHL, the way the NHL views it right now, he's right. I mean, Russell's 100% right. Like that's
all we got. Right.
I think we all questioned the money they gave him when they first signed him. We all thought that was a little nuts, especially as a third-line center when you have Nelson and Barzal there already.
They gave him second-line center money when he's a third-line center. So I agree with that, but I'm just saying.
Again, part of it may be, Russ, as you said, Mike, you said, Montreal may have to overpay to get guys. The Islanders may also, given the situation they were in, may have had to overpay guys to get them to be there also to a certain extent.
And I'll use this as a segue here to move to the Bruins, because Joe Haggerty wrote something for the NBC website this weekend, theorizing that the chaos in Buffalo regarding Jack Eichel would possibly lead to Jack Eichel being a Boston Bruin. I have all the respect in the world for Joe, but give me a break.
For whom?
You got to break out the what is it? The Mad Party and Mad Max thing. That's bait.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a clickbait article.
First of all, the Sabres, if they ever have to trade Eichel, which is in the realm of possibility, a couple years down the road if they don't improve, will trade him to the Western Conference. They will never trade him to somebody in their own division.
That's true.
It's never going to happen.
Analytics people will tell you otherwise, Michael. Come on.
Yeah, there's been trades. I mean,
it really worked out for Phil Kessel going to Toronto.
I mean, to me, the way it was written was fine. I mean, I think he wrote it as a speculative concept,
Sure, I'm not criticizing.
I don't. You didn't say it was a rumor or anything like that.
No. What he was saying is that based on the road that Buffalo's going down, in a couple years, if Eichel legitimately says, "Get me the hell out of Dodge," that the Bruins would be set up because maybe they have draft picks, they have prospects, but there's also a situation where Eichel has no trade protection. He signed that 8-year deal out of his ELC. They can trade him anywhere.
Yeah, but you know what? Again, what this smacks of is the same stuff as Kreider. Anybody who's got a Boston background, if they feel like at some point, at any point in their career, if they could be traded, they're going to somehow try and write an article saying, hey, he could go to the Bruins. Sure. And how often does it happen? It almost never happens.
Well, you remember Eric Lindros to Toronto?
Through the B that's part of the trade also, so don't forget that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Remember all those Eric Lindros to Toronto rumors that turned out to be complete and utter bunk? Who wrote those?
Feed the sports radio cycle.
What do you mean, Mike? He did go to Toronto.
Yeah, we're talking about when before his brain went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Well, Toronto always gets guys that way, or used to.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think Boston is not a really good fit either trade wise.
No,
but what the Sabres are looking for, if they were, I don't think they're ever trading Eichel. I don't think Eichel's ever asking for a trade. I've said that before.
He has not asked for a trade.
I don't think he will. I mean, especially
now, Boston, of course.
Now they brought him in. What was that?
Tell me that after 2 more years of incompetence. If that happens, then he's asking for a trade.
Yeah, no, I mean, it could be for sure. There comes a point at which everybody would get pissed off at the situation. But right now, I think that I don't think we have to assume incompetence.
No.
Right so you're going to make the same argument, Mike, if the Red Wings lose for 2 more years, that Dylan Larkin's go and get me the heck out of here?
It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's the same thing, right? I mean, he's got the franchise team. This year's team was embarrassingly bad. I mean, made Buffalo look like they were world beaters.
The only difference, Jen, is if Dylan Larkin were going to get the hell out of there, everybody would say, well, he wants to go home again, but he's playing home right now. This is different for Eichel, and that's why I think it's just clickbait. I don't even want to talk about it.
I mean, Matthews has been screwed with in Toronto too, and they don't have
don't.
Listen, if they don't start getting defensemen or a goaltender, they have the same kind of issue.
Come on, Eck.
No, I'm serious. Why wouldn't he?
He's the second highest paid player in the NHL.
I'm just saying. I mean,
and we've now gone off the rails.
This is the do not pass line. Come on.
I can't mention that.
You can be wrong, but you can mention it.
Why is that more wrong than Eichel?
Because Toronto,
Rex, do we really need to compare and contrast here?
Toronto has not been run like wait. Because Toronto has not been run like a pathetic loser organization for the last 5 or 6 years.
That's my opinion, but yeah, I get that. I mean, they haven't been good, but they've been but also I don't know. The Leafs haven't done much either. I mean,
I'm the first one to say that there have been pieces missing with the Leafs and that they need to improve to advance in the playoffs. But at least they're making the playoffs. The Sabres have been run in a haphazard fashion for 9 years.
No question about it. I agree with you.
So according to that same argument, then it looks like that Steve Stamkos would declare a trade also because Tampa Bay really hasn't won either.
Well, he already made that decision. He stayed and he took.
They went to a Stanley Cup final, and they've had. Yeah, but
they've disappointed if you consider where they should have been.
Tavares is the outlier. Most of those guys don't go back to that team, that home team.
Right.
It doesn't happen very often.
No, and that's why it's interesting, though, you hear the Taylor Hall rumors, because it does seem like that's going that way. No, it's with the Taylor Hall in Calgary. It's the same kind of thing. There's a guy.
I think there's a chance. I don't think it's a slam dunk.
I think it's the same amount of chance that Tavares had going back to Toronto. That's what I've heard. That's what I've been told.
Wow. I don't know if it's that high, but I'll take your word for it.
No, I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's,
What's more likely, Hall going back to Calgary or Gaudreau going back to Jersey or Philly?
Hall going back to Calgary.
I would say Hall to Calgary.
No questions asked there. I mean, eventually Gaudreau will go to Philly, probably. It's probably the same kind of thing with Lindros in Toronto. Eventually I could see Gaudreau ending up in Philly, but at the end of his career or something like that. But, because he does like it here, but I don't think it doesn't really make sense for the teams right now to make that move. The
problem is with someone like Hall, he doesn't know what the market's going to be for him. He's not, right now, he is not a superstar in the sport. So he can't write his own ticket like Peter Angelo. That's the only problem with Taylor Hall.
He needs to have, in order for him to achieve that status, he needs to have an exemplary run where Arizona is able to at least win at least a few rounds, and he's one of the big reasons why.
Yeah.
And for Calgary to pay Hall, they're probably going to have to trade Gaudreau to clear the salary.
Yeah, they are. They are.
It wouldn't be but again, I don't see I wouldn't see Philadelphia as the match.
It wouldn't be Philly right now because at
this point.
I mean, New Jersey is a much better fit for Gaudreau right now, as far as trade partners go with Calgary. Like New Jersey has the draft picks because Calgary can't take any money back if they're making that trade. The issue with the players.
Johnny Gaudreau could ask 3 questions: Who's the coach? We don't know.
Yeah.
Who's the GM? We don't know. Like,
Yeah.
Who's the owner? Who's the owner? We don't know.
No, we know who the owner is.
We know who the owner is.
All right.
We don't know what their plan is. That's the third question.
We should talk about the Selke and not the Bruins today. I'm going to say that.
All right, we'll do the Bruins tomorrow.
I think the Selke, because we're at 12:57. We can get in the Bruins tomorrow, and I think that's cool too. So let's talk about the Selke. This is an interesting award. I'll start with you guys. Russ, go ahead. You can start out.
Well, I'll tell you, this is one that I definitely looked at a lot of different things. It would have been easy for me, who I cover Philly, to just say, let me just give it to Sean Couturier because I've had him on my ballot for years.
Yeah.
And let me just finally give it to him. But I didn't want to do that because I know I have to do a better job than that. So I really looked at it. And in the end, I did give it to Couturier. But I will tell you that I would, Patrice Bergeron, when I put him in second, yes, he could definitely win again. I think Couturier showed me a little more than Bergeron this year. It's hard to say that because Bergeron's always so great.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at them separately, I think you could make an argument. My third guy is probably somebody who's not on a lot of ballots, and that's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And I think he made a big jump this year. He's penalty killing. I think under the Tippett system, we're seeing a guy that is really valuable for them now, and a guy who's not on the ice for a lot of goals either.
Yeah.
And so that's a guy. And then Ryan O'Reilly and
Barkov.
Yeah.
Barkov and then O'Reilly. That's how I finished out my list.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, Couturier had a fantastic year, and I've always liked him as a player. And the one thing I always respected about him is he established himself as a defensive player, and we knew he had the offensive skill, but he established himself as a 19 and a 20-year-old in the NHL, shutting down Evgeny Malkin, and now I think he's getting the respect of how well he plays defensively when he started to score, which I think is
great. That's exactly
bizarre, but that's the reality.
Yeah, I think he's at the end of the day, I don't think any question, one of the best 5-on-5 players in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
Watch. I've obviously had a front row seat to watch his play, to watch a lot of the subtleties of his game too, the things that he does defensively. I still remember, Russ and I will remember developmental camp in his first season. He was doing face-off drills with Matt Reed, who's a wing, played a little bit of center, Bob Clark in the middle, and Reed was absolutely schooling Couturier on the draws. Yep. And you look at him now, how dominant he is.
Yeah.
It's really something, remembering on how his career, how he started this first year and where he is now.
The weird part is he's only had one top 5 finish for the Selke, and that was in 2017-18. He came in second. 18. And last year he actually came in 6th, which I think is ridiculous. I think
we all were in agreement last year that to be 6th last year was.
I think he took a different role. I think that's what people saw him as. People saw him as like as a top line center, which is
right.
Yeah, and strangely enough, again, that kind of took away from it, which was weird, which was strange. But then obviously this season he's absolutely coming to his own, and I would be unequivocal in my vote. It would be, I mean, but you would have Bergeron and you would have and O'Reilly certainly in the mix there, but it's Sean Couturier's award.
Yeah. Just like Kevin made the point on Friday about, it being Yossi's time and that he might win because of that, even though he's been a great defenseman. I still think it's still Bergeron's time. And after losing last year to O'Reilly, Bergeron having the year he's having right now with the Bruins, which is fantastic, 31 goals, plus 23 plus minus. Couturier might have to wait another year or two to get the Selke. That's why I think I would probably favor Bergeron to get, his 12th or 14th or something?
Just out of curiosity, Mike, who do you think has the higher face-off percentage?
Probably Couturier.
He does. By 2 points. Like 2%. That's pretty high.
Yeah. No, I mean
it's such a weird award, though, isn't it? I mean, it is.
Right. It's a defensive award, but the tiebreaker is going to be offensive.
Offense. That's the crazy thing about it. It's like it's a defensive award.
Like Norris. It's like the Norris. The tiebreaker.
Couturier, very few players established themselves defensively first.
But Couturier had more points too.
I know, but the funny thing about why we think of Couturier as a defensive player, is because he did establish himself as a defensive player first.
Yeah,
kind of like I think of
the board, Mike. It's a tremendous. Don't get me wrong. I am not denigrating it. Patrice Bergeron's year. I just feel if you take Sean Couturier out of Philadelphia's lineup, you lose a good bit. I think Boston has the ability to be able to.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Philly can as well, but I think Couturier, his overall game.
Yeah, my point is, I don't know how many more years Bergeron is going to be at this level. And the history of NHL awards. But
I can't give it to him because of that, Mike.
No. Okay, if I'm choosing strictly on ability and their year, I would give it to Couturier. In terms of the politics of it, I think Bergeron's going to win because this might be the last year that he has a year like he's having right now that justifies him winning it.
I would hope voters are smarter than that. I would.
No, but that's a big hope there. Don't you think so? I mean,
I'm a voter. Come on.
I know a lot of them are. Right? I'm saying a lot of them are right now. I mean, do you guys know who the top plus minus forward is in the NHL right now?
Give us a hint.
Considering I never look at the month number,
I know it's an interesting number, but he's on the Colorado Avalanche. I'll give you that.
Landeskog.
Nope.
I'm going to give it to what's his name, JT Comfort.
No, it'd be plus 40 with Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves is plus. Oh,
40. Ryan Graves, that's right. He did have a massive.
Interesting, it's to me that he only scored 9 goals. Maybe had 26 points, but a plus 40. When you have when you have a point total that low and a plus minus that high, shouldn't you be considered for the Selke?
Well, no,
I'm just saying based on
no, because it's based on a lot of different things. It's goals on the ice when he's there. He didn't score them all. But the other thing is, I think the better thing to say is I ripped that trade when it happened. He was traded for Chris Bigras, who ended up later on the Flyers. But that was the trade, him for Chris Bigras. And I didn't like that trade because I had seen Graves play live in the Memorial Cup. And I saw he was a supreme shot blocker and had a little bit of offense. I never thought he'd get 9 goals, but I always knew he'd be a great shot blocker.
And most of the time, the plus-minus leaders are a lot of times they're defensemen because they're on the ice more. And he's probably on the ice all the time with McKinnon, so that helps.
But he had power plays, no goals, no assists on the power play.
Right? No, we're talking about the other goals.
I know. I'm just saying. So, but the second leading guy in the NHL this year is another forward who.
Graves is a defenseman.
I'm sorry, Graves is a defenseman. I know it's a forward. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking Graves is a forward. That's why it's ridiculous. I apologize.
Adam Graves in the brain.
Right. I did. I had the wrong Graves in my head. Okay, so the best forward plus minus, I apologize, in the league would then be Artemi Panarin. Who's a plus 36 for the year. Mm-hmm. And that's and then after him Braden
bad signing.
Yeah, after that Braden Point. Plus 28. So there's a big drop off there from Panarin to, but you have some serious guys at the top now. With a guy like Tampa, I would say, okay, Tampa scores a lot of goals.
I think Point you could put in the list. Yeah. When I look at all these guys, I just don't think Point is as on point, for lack of a better term, of shutting guys down like these other guys in the list.
And you also have to say that, and far be it from me to make this argument because I've always valued plus minus, although you know that it's not a perfect stat. When you're a matchup guy like Couturier, when you're a matchup guy like Bergeron, you're facing, Bergeron's facing Austin Matthews or Tavares. Couturier's facing Crosby or Malkin. Your plus minus is not going to be like in the stratosphere because you're facing that other team's number one center and they're going to score eventually. So
I will tell you, points not in the same league. I just looked them up face-off wise as Bergeron or Couturier. He's not.
No, he's not good. He's not. Isn't he under? Isn't he under?
No, he's 51.1, which is respectable. That's good.
And you also have like another interesting name in the top of.
And his giveaway takeaway is good.
Plus minus is Austin Matthews.
Right.
And
Matthews. I mean, he has said since his rookie season, the guys he emulated were Kopitar and Jonathan Taves, who are two-way centers. He wants to be in that consideration. Problem is, he may score too many goals to be in it. He's going to score.
He's not there yet. We could all look at it with the eye test and say he's made strides, but he's not there yet.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I think it's just that's funny because when I looked at Couturier's year this year, I watched him more than I watched Bergeron. I think Couturier over the last 2 years has not been put as a shutdown guy as often as he has been put as a guy to actually score goals for the team.
I think this year he really was. I think this year, if you went back and look at games and tape and things, you'll see because, again, also there are some other players that didn't start off that year great, and Couturier, his play from start to finish was terrific.
Well, I think he is the best flyer. I'll tell you that. He's the best flyer player. And I think he's completely underrated around the league. And I think he's the best with the puck of anybody on the team.
And I think the biggest thing was also this year that he, with Kevin Hayes added to the mix, that heavy physical load was shifted a little bit off of him, which allowed him, I think, to become far more effective and even. I mean, he's always been an efficient player.
Yeah,
I do think the Hayes effect has been major in that respect because he takes some of that penalty kill load off of him in that circumstance.
You don't think Couturier would be a better captain for the Flyers than Claude Giroux?
I think they're both. I think they deserve to be. Yeah. I think right now structurally it's fine because of Claude Giroux. It's a tough one to say, but I would say.
I mean, they're very different.
They're different. Again, it depends on how your coach sort of. And Claude has kind of shifted his responsibilities and everything now. Certainly playing on the left, side, not a centerman, regular centerman anymore. Overall impact. Again, Claude's the one, kind of the guy who's been through some of the war, has been through wars and everything. So I'm fine with it. But if Claude was ever dealt, I think Couturier's.
It would go right to him, don't you think? I mean, I think that they're different kinds of captains, which is interesting. Like they're different. They're very different kinds of people, different kinds of leaders.
Yeah. Claude's kind of have that sort of. He gets fired. He can burn hot on the ice. And that's. You need that, whereas I think Sean is a bit more even. Is more even keeled by nature. Which again, it depends on what you're looking for out of your captain.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's the cap. That's always the interesting thing about the NHL captain thing. Is always like what works better. It depends on the kind. I think it depends on who matches best with the coach in general. Like to me, it's a coach. The coach and captain are sort of linked together.
I mean, I looking back to last September when they made their choice, I think that Toronto made the right choice with Tavares because he's that type of even-keeled, experienced veteran guy, being I think 29 years old now. And the other, I think the number 2 would have been Morgan Riley, but Matthews wouldn't have made sense. He's too young, and I think maybe in a few years he would be a good captain. But right now, I think it would have been too much pressure on him. Couturier is what, 27, 28?
I believe he's right. He's just entering his prime years.
I would feel
in the league. I know that. So.
I would feel safe to say that the next captain after Giroux will be Couturier.
Yeah, if that changed. Yeah, I would say he's
Provorov. Like if Provorov as captain for the Flyers, I really
27 years old, Sean.
Yeah.
I mean, I would look at Provorov too. It depends on where you go. I mean, if I was to go with the Flyers, I think Provorov has a really good shot too because he's another guy who should be a captain in the NHL. There's no two ways about it. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. And as always, we had some fun here today with everyone, and no hard feelings are left over this after the show. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.